So should we start?
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon to dignitaries and my dear friends. Before starting the webinar, I would like to request everyone to mute the audio and video. And you can post your questions in the comment box with your name during the lecture. The questions will be answered in the end depending on the availability of time. I, Shubham Ekbote, Vice President of SP Navroji Vadia College Student Chapter, take a pleasure to welcome you all to the webinar organized by Navroji Vadia College and SP Mumbai section. This webinar has been organized in order to provide the students a platform to interact with oil and gas professionals during this unprecedented situation. These industry academia sessions will help us to build the confidence to step in the industry with sound technical knowledge. The topic for today's lecture is shale gas. We are overwhelmed to have Mr. Prem Kumar Varma as the speaker of the day. Mr. Prem Kumar Varma has 44 years of experience in various spectrum of Indian E&P. He has worked as executive director and asset manager of Neelam and Hira asset of ONGC from 2005 to 2008. Thereafter, he joined Reliance Industries Limited in April 2008 as Senior Vice President at Head Operations, Reliance Industries Limited. In 2013, he started functioning as President at Production in E&P at Reliance Industries Limited, Headquarter Mumbai. He is currently functioning as Advisor E&P at Reliance Industries Limited. He is excellent leader, manager with human touch, technical innovator, skillful communicator, and a perfect team leader. He is a poet and YouTuber, which is a pleasant surprise and interestingly uncharacteristic of an oil and gas person. I would like to specifically mention that Mr. Prem Kumar Varma has been very kind to always be ready to conduct various lectures and share vast knowledge. Now, I request Mr. Prem Kumar Varma to address our keen listeners.
Yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for my introduction, but I would just like to add a little more than that. That now I have retired from Reliance since November last year, and still it's my privilege to talk to you on some of the petroleum engineering subjects. And my talk on today, for today's talk is basically an introduction to shale gas. When Professor Sagar told me that can you prepare this lecture, then I just remembered my visit to Pioneer Field in USA, a shale gas field. And then I thought I will try. And lot of literature, a lot of support from friends, and today I am before you. I will try to take you to some basics of this shale gas, and from subsurface to drilling, hydrofracturing operation, and some innovations, initiatives by the industry, including case history. And let us see how far it's useful, and especially my visit to the field also. And as it is, it's a unconventional oil and gas. But let me go to the presentation now. Just wait for a moment. Presentation is visible? Hello?
No, sir.
My audio and video both is okay,
Yes, sir. But presentation is not.
but I have on my full screen the presentation is there. It's coming or not?
No, sir.
What could be the reason? Let me check. Let me try.
So you can stop sharing and then share it again. Maybe that will help.
Okay.
Yes, it is coming now.
Video is not coming. My presentation.
Sir, you have shared your entire screen. So maybe if you open your presentation, it will be on the screen for all now.
Hmm. One sec. I think one step.
So it will be better if you select a window. There are three options.
Okay. It is here. No.
So please click on the presentation there. You can see the presentation. It is in the background.
Yeah. It has come now?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so my first slide will be with basically safety moment. Let me see whether it opens or not. Otherwise, I will go to the next slide. This is David's story, and it's a 2013, a 38-year-old motorbike. A camera was fitted on his headgear, and some footage of some collision. This is for all of us, especially those who use bike, ride safe, and life is very precious. Okay, so this content is having mostly, I mean, mainly for this 4, 5, 6 to 7 topics, and like what is this shale gas, some details of that. I have tried to get data GH report, some YouTube or even internet, and some friends have sent me some topics from where I could incorporate in this whole presentation. It's a little big one, but hopefully we'll keep the interest going and getting sweet spot about drilling, hydrofracturing, production and operation, then optimization and some takeaways. That is what I thought of it, and I have just tried. Unconventional shale gas, what it is. Actually, when you see this tripod, then you can see here the volume. One sec, I think. So at the bottom is your shale gas, then methane hydrates, coal gas, tight gas, then conventional. You can see that from the volume point of view, the world has got the maximum volume of gas from the shale gas. And conventional is the minimum. However, if you see the permeability from the top here, it's about 100 millidarcy, 10 millidarcy, it goes on decreasing, and when it comes to shale gas, this is 0.0001 millidarcy. It's a very tight reservoir. So shale gas is in a very fine grained reservoir in which gas is self-sourced. It is not coming from some other sources and then it is accumulated there. And it is stored in pores and natural fractures, and it is in the free gas form. And not all shale gas in the world are potential need to be organically rich. It has got to be organically rich. That is more important. At the same time, increasing volume, improved technology, higher cost. It's very costly when as you go down from conventional to tight gas to coal gas to methane hydrate to then again shale gas. So it's really unconventional, and it's very difficult also because our permeability is in the terms of 0.0001 millidarcy. One question to audience, I'm just flagging down. Can you estimate the number of shale gas wells in USA? Just so let somebody go to Google and find out. My number is 1.7 million numbers of shale gas wells. 1.7 million. 17 lakhs shale gas wells in USA. Please check up. Okay, next. These gases are short hydrocarbons, methane, ethane, propane, that's all. And they are in the pure form. Minimum refinement is required, and it's not that minimum toxic impurities. There are shale gas which have got this H2S also. It was in case of Pioneer we observed, eyesight. It's a just blocks. If you say take the core will be solid, but there are pores here. In these pores, we have the gas contained. As I told you in the last, that permeability is very, very low. It can't flow till we don't improve the permeability. Also, one of the characteristics of this shale gas, oil, or shale gas is tight oil is in a conventional oil or conventional wells, decline is say 5%, 10% per year, or even less in many cases. But here in shale gas, decline is very fast. First year itself, it can go up to 70%, 75%. Second year again 34%, like that, you know. So the rate of decline is very fast. That's why the number of wells will be required will be more, and we have to find out all the ways and means to how to reduce the cost. Then only it becomes viable. We will come to that also. Some details of shale gas. In world, shale gas is found all over the world. I think China, it is reported figure is 1.2 TCF. USA, it's 862, 860, or say 900, whatever, I mean. Then comes Mexico, and then Argentina, Australia, South Africa, India, you know, it's estimated is less, only 63 trillion cubic feet. But anyway, I will come to that also. This could be a little old figure. However, we have no data for Russia and Middle East in these areas, in this data. In US, you can see this is the Marcellus gas. That is the biggest shale gas area. And Fayetteville here, then Permian Basin is here. And you can see across US, the shale gas is found. World gas consumption, this is just to give you an idea, you know. Somewhere in 2020, we are almost gas consumption is quadrillion British thermal unit, quad we call it, and one quad is your 10 to the power 15 BTU. It's a big energy. So from the graph you can see we are somewhere around 130 quad we are consuming. India is you can say very, very less. Anyway, our consumption is, as of date, we are consuming about 170 million cubic meter per day, and we are producing only half of it. Almost about 50% or so we are producing. Rest we are importing in the form of LNG. In US, shale gas, this green is the shale gas. If you just see here 2015 or 2020, say about 30 TCF gas production is there overall in US. Out of that, say about 10 or 12 is the figure for the others. So almost 20 TCF gas we are producing from shale gas. And of this, almost 50% gas is from the East Coast. That is what I have showed you in the picture. So huge consumption is there, and shale gas production is going to rise. It's going to rise. That is there. Where we are in India. In India, we are basically in a very nascent stage. 4 basins, that is Cambay Basin, Krishna Godavari, Kaveri Basin, and Assam Basin. These are the basins where some jobs we are doing. As per June 2013 report, in place shale gas in our country, in the whole, that is estimated, is about 584 TCF. Technically recoverable is only about 96 TCF. But these are a very ballpark figure, you know, somebody can say 60 TCF, 80 TCF, but we haven't done too much of studies or details collected for each and every basin, or we have not done so many wells and all, so that we can have a good idea of that. I had a data up 2016-17. A policy was announced in 2013. ONGC has got 50 blocks and Oil India 6 blocks. The detailed study was planned to be done for shale gas. What Oil India Limited has done is they have identified 5 basins on land and GNG evaluation in 4 blocks completed, not basins. Each basin has got certain blocks. So 4 blocks they've completed. 3 core wells filling program was there. Might be in last 2-3 years they might have drilled, and details can be further we can get from DGH annual report. ONGC 4 onlet and 12 exploration locations ready for drilling, coring and other data planned. The report says that 18 wells have been drilled. 1 well has been hydrofractured, but this hydrofractured well is in Jharia coalfield. And other activities, you know, we are doing some international conferences, seminars, as was done in 2016. And I must say that this policy framework for facilitating shale gas and oil is very, very important. You know, it needs huge investment, a lot of land. When you go just run through this, then you will know that the complexity of shale gas production, exploration, and all that. And then we have to establish favorable regulatory and fiscal environment. Again, I'll just like to share with you that getting land acquisition is a hell of a job in India, because our population is more, and we don't have so much of barren land here in our country. So then again, the water requirement, other requirement, infrastructure requirement. So these are the challenges which we have to see how we go about it. Getting sweet spot. This is just I have tried to try to give you some idea that how do we get the sweet spot in case of a shale gas. You know, this is just diagram. This is you all must be aware of it. The conventional oil and gas structure. Then we have got the tar sands. You know, that famous tar sands of Canada. The conventional associated gas and oil, these are all in sandstone or limestone. There are oil-rich sand is also there. They call it tight oil. Many places in the US where we have gone for shale gas, we have got the tight oil also. And wherever we have got the combination of the two, that is more profitable because oil is always costlier than the gas, and market development is a basic requirement of gas. So this has become more profitable. Wherever it's standalone, only shale gas, only gas, yes, there are challenges. Tight sand gas, I mean, these are different types of oil and gas we do find in Mother Earth. So we have just given a unconventional versus conventional fossil fuel to have some idea. Now, sweet spot identification. Normally, you know, we all get it through seismic survey. And what we have found that wherever these fault-related fractures are observed to be more in seismic, there you identify them, and they have this shale gas, and from there the extraction of shale gas is also easy. What we do normally, then after that we drill a well, and then we do this some tracer logs, production logs, and then we do find that in those areas where we have got this fractures, natural fracture, that becomes a sweet spot for identification of shale gas. That is zone of high natural fracture density, high positive curvature, and image log. This is the area where we have got shale gas is, you know, profitable. As I showed you that small cut of a core, the shale gas was embedded in a very, very tight spots. So when the fracture is there, then the possibility of this shale gas is more. Production log, when we take, I think, and that shows the highest concentration of gas, and they also more or less go with a fractured reservoir. Mud log also shows highest gas count wherever. So those sections we consider for that, okay, in the shale, the shale gas is there. That means area with natural fractures would be considered as the sweet spot. So that is the Similarly, we use the log, sonic, density, image, and mud log, and from their interpretation, we get to identify the sweet spot, and these are the attributes like your, you know, low lambda rho, high mu rho, and low VPVA. These are all logging terms, you know, and then we plot them, and then we find that this distribution, from their distribution, we could identify which is the sweet spot. High frequency stratigraphy, that is very, very much, we get it know from our seismic surveys, and they are the very hydrocarbon potential areas, and we know that these are the areas where we should go for identification or for the shale gas. And pilot wells we drilled for, I mean, more accurate for identifying those sweet spots. And from the seismic, we get this phases map that also helps us. And then we drill a pilot hole, and the pilot well will give us a good idea that which is the shale section where we can go for shale gas production. There are a good number of papers in our SPE and AAPG. So whosoever is interested, they can go to those and get more details on this. It's a very, I mean, not very, very complex, but yes, it's complex studies there. And my request to professors will be that let us take one such seismic section and try to give us a small workshop for the students. I mean, fractured zone, and then identify those sweet spots. So that will be a good exercise for all of you. Drilling, yes, it's very important. As I told you that oil or gas, we have to go for drilling to get it. There are some fields like in our country, like a field called Digboy, which is, it's one of the field in world which is producing right since 1889. 1889, can you imagine 120 plus 130 years or so. And there the oil was found hardly 30 feet or 40 feet below the surface. And in the initially and that is the first oil field of India. But yes, if you have any opportunity, anybody from that area, if he can go and see the Digboy oil field, then it is really very interesting, the type of small structures. Like, water well drilling, even smaller than that in some cases. Later on, we went deeper into that. Okay, for shale gas, horizontal drilling is a must because this is very, very low permeability wells. And this has only changed the way and the oil and gas drilling is done by allowing producers to drill horizontal wells. And first we drill down to vertical. Say this total TVD here is about 14,500 feet. So almost 7,000 to 8,000 feet you drill vertically. And then 7,000 feet you go horizontal. So out of that, so that you get a almost 5,000 feet. So 5,000 feet कितना मीटर हो गया? बताइए. 1,500 मीटर, 1,500 meters or so, or 2,000 meters. Okay. Lateral length is anywhere between 5,000 to 6,000 feet. Okay. And then those wells have got to be perforated, those wells have got to be fractured. You can imagine, not like normal wells where we go and drill it and then we only perforate few hundred feet and then we produce. Here, our job is much more complex because of this poor permeability. So special tools are used to curve the well, whipstock and all those. I think that is what we use for creating the curvature, make the well horizontal within the gas bearing rock for several thousand feet, Then maximum contact with gas bearing rock formation. So that more gas can be produced from a single well, then multiple horizontal wells can be drilled laterally from the same surface location. I'll come to that because from the same location, at least I can drill 4 to 6 wells. So that becomes very, very cost effective. And compared to vertical wells, horizontal wells are more economical for shale gas extraction as these cover larger extent, larger area. A typical well construction, I showed you that many times, they go for air drilling. Like in coal bed methane, also we go for air drilling. Here also we go mainly for air drilling many cases, and then the fluid drilling. So the drilling rate also in this type of shale gas wells are faster. We use many casings. Like here we have got 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is the fifth casing. But nowadays, to optimize the cost, they are going. Number of these intermediate casings have been reduced now. Okay, so 5.5 inch casing, 958, 11 3x4, 16 inch, and this is conductor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 casings here. Okay, so to optimize cost, we are reducing the number of casings. I'll come to that in later talk. Yeah, this is the pad drilling. That means one can drill from one location, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wells even, so that we cover a good number of good area, more areas, and then we fracture it. These sections we fracture it, so that we have got reservoir contact is maximum, and cost of drilling reduces, because from one place we don't have to move the drilling rig time and again, and just shift a bit and then drill another well. And multiple horizontal wells as a single drilling pad could drain 200 to 400 acres. So that's a big gain for us. So this is what we are doing in case of horizontal wells and shale gas. So this is one drilling pad. You can just see here. And from here, the rig is here. So you can shift a bit. Then we can drill 1, 2, 3, 4 wells here. And that can go right up to, say, here for 2 kilometers or 2 kilometers away, this way, that way. And it covers a big area. Water management is a big issue for drilling as well as hydrofracturing. We have to source the water, then we have to store in some tap, pond or tank, and then we have to transport, and then you go for drilling, then you do it for hydrofracturing, and then we do get some produced water. So that needs to be it needs to be storage, then it has got to be treated. Treated water, again you recycle for again this goes to the storage tank, and wastewater goes for disposal. So from source to pad, where we are going for drilling, we go for trucking, we go for pipeline. And one interesting example I am just trying to tell you, that one of my friend who is working in the area, I asked him, how you transport water? Then he says, sir, if the storage tank about 5 to 6 kilometers away, we lay the pipeline, flexible pipeline. Then I just asked him, how much of pipeline you can lay, because these are all very time consuming. And he told me very simple way that on the reels, big reels is mounted on trucks, and almost 1.5 kilometers of pipeline by one truck mounted reel is laid in less than 12 to 14 hours, 6-inch dia. So you can imagine the capability of the teams there in US, where they are using these 5-6 kilometers of water pipeline. They lay within a day or two. You can't think of here that 6 kilometers along the roadside, somebody is laying the pipeline in 1.5 days. So that is the type of structure, the infrastructure, the facilities, what people have developed. And then they have got the central water tank, then they got the main line, then we have got the pipelines, we have got the pits, we have got the overhead tanks. So it's a huge, infrastructure requirement for drilling a well on a pad where I can drill, say, 4 to 6 wells. And if you see the activity, so how they start? Say data gathering and resource assessment they do, then go for leasing, then we go for permit, then we go for well planning, then we go for scheduling, then site preparation, drilling, well completion, then go for hydrofracturing, then management of fluid. It's a big job, management of fluid, it's not simple job. Then management of waste, as I just explained in the last slide. Then we have got the gathering, treatment and processing facilities. We go for establishment of division of interest, then operations and production of well, payment and distribution of royalties. It's very interesting in case of US that the minerals in US are the ownership of the land, not the government. In our country, all the minerals below the land is the ownership is with the government, central government. In USA, ownership of the mineral below is the ownership of the land. Landowner is the owner of the mineral also. Because when I was talking to the guys where I had gone, look, I think you must be very happy that the issues of hassles of getting licenses, this and that must be very less because government is very proactive. Then they came on, no, Mr. Verma, don't think that way. Here the landowners are the mine owners. And we have to deal with so many landowners for this division of these royalties and payments. So it's a hell of a job and we are really troubled by this. So anyway, issues are everywhere, whether India or USA or wherever. And just like this is just a timeline, I don't, maybe some of the figures will just give you an idea that 4 to 8 weeks they go for environmental safety and seismic analysis. And then there will be some time gap. Then 4 to 8 weeks they came for wellbore drilling up to 5 kilometers below surface, 4 to 8 weeks. And they have reduced it further. Okay. Then up to 1 week, they just did hydraulic fracturing and completed. Within a week, they complete this hydrofrac jobs. And then then they go for production. And they produce for 20 to 30 years. So this is the timeline. So you can say that it's all are in weeks. And this is possible only when there is a good infrastructure, a lot of contractors, systems are developed, the policies are there. This is just to give you an idea that people there talk in terms of weeks, while ours is, and we started somewhere around 2013, this whole shale gas business thought. And still, I don't think we are producing even for a single well till now. So this is challenge for all of you. I'm just trying to share with you this, that look, things are very, very tough in our country to get the job done. One is drilling. That means, just I'll sum up drilling is that we have to drill almost 5 to 7 kilometers. Out of that, say about 2 to 3 kilometers is vertical and balance 2 kilometers is horizontal. And we go for pad drilling. That means one location, 4, 5, 6 wells. Then all these wells, they need a lot of water, a lot of infrastructure to get the things done in weeks, not even months, and then produce. And but that cannot be done before we hydrofrac them. Hydrofracturing is a very complex job. It has got a lot of plus in the sense that the shale gas industry has come up only because of high volume hydrofracturing possibility by the industry. If it was not, we would not have heard of shale gas. Just a pictorial, I know. After directional drilling, high pressure mixture of water, chemical, sand used to blast and hold open the fractures. You can see here, this is the well, this is the your pumper pumps the water and they pump it here, and here it fractures the shale formation. As I told you, I think this could be more than a kilometer length, fracturing in different stages. And when we fracture it, then the gas here, they try to come come into the well bore, and then they flow. So pictorially, I have just tried to make it simple to understand that a well is drilled. For that, we have got the water, we have got the storage tanks, and then this is your water is also for transportation to the location, and then we'd go for hydrofracturing through the pumpers in the well, and when it is fractured, perforated, then fractured, and then after the fracture, the whole thing flows back, and then the gas flow back. So this gravels or the sand, they go and get embedded into these fractures, so that they create a permeability for the reservoir gas to come into the wellbore. Now, hydrofracturing is what creates fractures from the wellbore to the rock formations. And it is done by pumping a fracturing fluid into the wellbore. And what it does, it fractures the surrounding rock formation. And to keep this fracture open after the injection stops, a solid propellant is used. You call it propellant, you call it sand. And then this method of fracturing is informally called fracking or hydrofracking. Propellant is commonly a sieved round sand pumped into the fracture. Many times it is ceramic. Different types of solid balls we do pump. The propellant flow within the hydraulically fractured created fractures and restrict those from the closer, and they restrict them not to close, and creating higher permeability, as I told you. Thus, the propped hydrofracture then becomes a conduit through which gas flows back into the well. So this is a typical well of in that area, Permian basin where I had gone. And this is the well. So this horizontal section, you can see here it's about 5,500 feet. So almost you can say 2,000 feet or 2,500 feet. We do go and perforate in stages, and then we use the systems for gravel packing and gravel hydrofracking. Okay. Natural is like this. From the reservoir, the gas flows into the wellbore. But when we create fracture, then from the fractures, the gas will come like this, and then they flow, combine and flow to the wellbore. So this is the impact hydrofracturing makes. Hydrofracturing is not only for shell. We are doing for coal bed methane also. We are doing for tight sand, sandstone reservoir also. So anywhere where it is the formation is tight, we are going for hydrofracturing. But in case of shale gas, it is a must because the permeability is very, very, very low. I told you 0.0001 millidarcy. Then we have to complete the well for stage fracking or deeper fracking, they also call. Typically, it starts from the toe. That is the last end of the well, end of the horizontal leg, and works back. So, you know, at a stage of 350 feet plus stage, that is called one stage. 350 feet length is called one stage. And then we go for some 70 feet spacing, and then we perforate. So we have got 5 clusters of perforations, and with 70 feet space, we can't perforate all the casing, you know, then it will be totally damaged. And then we go for this stage fracking. So what they do is normally that once we complete this, then we will frack this one stage at a time. And maybe in earlier cases, they used to pull out everything. They will again go back, then again they will perforate. But these days, they are going in one go. They lower all the stages and they do stage fracking. That is, first they will go for this first 350 feet, then they will go for next 350 feet. And for there is a system, completion system is there. And that can be done in stages. And in one go, they are going for maybe 6, 7 stages also, or even some 10, 15 stages also. So stage wise, they are going for completion and then stage fracking. Those propant or the sand, what I was just talking to you, there are 100 mesh sand, 100 mesh sand is typically used in early portion of the job. Okay, and then it's a combination of other mesh propants are used in gas cells, that is 40, 70, 40, 80 mesh propant, they are added and then it is pumped inside the formation. Some areas they are using 3050 or 2040 propant. These are the different sizes of propants. Huh? In some areas, because there could be some backflow of those propants, so they use resin coated tailings where the to increase the propant strength so that it doesn't flow back. They use the resin coated. This resin coated one we have used also in coal bed methane also. I think tomorrow you will be listening on this. Then there are rock types are different, needs higher strength propant, so we are using ceramic propants also. Okay, so depending on the requirement, we are using different types of these propants. And for this, you know, we have to do a lot of studies. And we do, I think, a lot of studies we do. Frac design parameter, that is what I was just talking to you, that it's not just go and frac a well. We must have good porosity and permeability data from the core and from the logs. Then what is the total lateral strength? What is the quality of the rock? That is brittleness, ductility, toughness, fracture. What is the thickness? What is the barriers? What is the depth? What is the in situ stress? What is the total depth? I mean, okay. What is the lithology of the pay? So, whether there are natural fractures, there are a lot of parameters are there. And for the benefit of us, I mean, the reservoir and petroleum engineers, lots of softwares have been developed. And my request will be, why don't some guy use some of these softwares and give some values and do some mock exercise for the frac design. So this is possible, I think, and as a post-grad level or even undergrad level, some small exercise can be done. How to design a frac job. And there are a lot of such softwares available in the industry where we can certainly use them for studies. And it's a very interesting topic. And what we do is normally we prepare a fracture model. Actual deviation for the well is modeled, as well as the plant perforation for the well. We enter into the data sheet, and the pumping schedule is entered into the fracture model. There are numerous iterations. They run, and then they optimize the design. Okay, what is this optimum design? Optimum design is how this is covering the pay interval, the thickness, whether all the thickness is getting perforated, or some is left over, that's not desirable. Then creating a sufficiently conductive propped fracture length that fits our well and perforation spacing. It should not happen that I'm fracturing and that fracture goes into the other well's already fractured area. So it won't fracture the virgin area. Then well interference should not be there, and which gives us the best production profile. So many such softwares are available, and students can certainly try their knowledge on any of these softwares. This was the frac fleet in one of the Permian field where I had gone. You can see here a big water tank is there for the storage of water. Huge water tank. From there also water comes from some other areas also. And this is near this pad. But not necessarily that it will cater to this only. There could be some, say, 2 miles, 3 miles away. There other pad is there. So this, you can't go on creating this water storage pond everywhere. So the pipeline will be laid. So up to say about 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers, or 4 kilometers. And there we can transport this water. So you can see here 20 pump units. These are pump units. Those who are there to pump the water in the gravel or the proppant. This is proppant storage. These are the proppant storage. These are the water frac tanks for pumps. Frac tanks for pumps. So they are hydration units. So that proppant, and they are mixed with the chemicals and all that. So all these things is such a huge system is involved for fracking a well. And like that, you frac some. It's possible that without shifting all this, if you go for say 5 or 6 wells fracking, that will be certainly very, very cost effective. because you can't have to generate so much of space and so much of systems everywhere. So this way they are doing in our fields. Just see here, 1, 2, 3, 3 wells are 3, 4, 5 wells are seen here. And these are the zipper frac. That's what I explained you, that in one go, this is your CTU, coil tubing unit, that is installed on a well, and then we go for fracking. Okay, and in one go, we frac the whole length of perforation in stages, and we start from the bottommost or the farthest one, and then we come up. That way, it reduces the cost also. Use benefit. These systems, according to our design, and they help increase production, these fracturing fluids, and they are designed in such a way that it improves the operator's return on investment. And they are based on basically these key parameters like fluid type, viscosity, fluid rheology, then economic, then experience with local formations, lab data, and material availability, propellant selection. And they are done, the lot of lab studies are also done, In USA, these facilities are readily available, fracturing facilities. A lot of contractors are there whose job is to bring their, either do the lab studies, then bring it the whole system on the drilling pad. While in India, we need to develop all these facilities and infrastructure. It's a big challenge for all of us. And this fluid system, the propellant should be always as a homogeneous mixture in the liquid form or with water, so that we use the cross-link gel, foam, and friction-reducing water, because the solids, they create a lot of friction. So we add into this fracturing fluid. Again, in our country, the way I know that fracturing was started long back in India, and especially in oil and gas fields. ONGC started this, and lot of fracturing job has been done for the oil wells, and especially it started with the Western India, that is in Cambay field, and it has gone to Eastern India also, all over our country. But these jobs, they are very huge jobs, and as far as infrastructure is concerned, company like ONGC at present can only afford to, or they are capable of doing this type of jobs. Water containing sand and other propellants suspended with the aid of thickening agents into well bore to create cracks, that is fracture. Friction reducing agents, we use polyacrylamide polymers, we use that they reduce the friction. Okay, and they are very popular in shale fracture where long, narrow fractures are needed. Cross-linked, a cost-effective method of increasing molecular and thus viscosity of the fluid. So these type of slick water or cross-linked water, we use water-based fracturing fluid. Again, this is a whole lot of technology for fracturing fluids. And when I was just seeing some SP uh, stalwart or petroleum industry stalwart for this proposing some awards, then there are many people who are doing only studies on fracturing fluids, hydrofracturing fluids, and hundreds of patents they have got. And this is a big technology thing. And typically these hydraulic fracturing fluids, they are say 86-88% water. And then they have got the sand or the propellant and the other chemicals and polymers, gels, they constitute about 0.5%. And these are those other things, gel, propellant, and others. Again, the water resources, a typical frac job in shale gas, they use around 3 million gallons of fracturing fluid and 1,500 gallons of chemical waste. That is the 1,500 gallons of water with chemical, they flow back. So as I gave you that whole structure, that how we store the water, then how we transport it to the pad, and then we inject it and hydrofracturing, then we flow back. So what is this 3 million gallons will be equivalent in cubic meters? Let somebody give me some figure. 3 million gallons. 1 gallon is 3.7 liters. Okay. So 3 million gallons would be so many cubic meters of water for one job. And bad thing about this, some of the chemicals which we are using is that they're carcinogenic, and there are certain health issues also. And always you will find that in the news that some or other, people or some associations, they tell a lot about the negative impact of this hydrofracking. And in some areas in California, people complain that this hydrofracking has increased their earthquake possibility. So I think our industry, they are trying to minimize all these negative effects, and a lot of research is going on to improve the, these fracking jobs and reduce the negative impacts. Then comes this, there are two main topics are left. And Professor Sagar, should I continue?
Yes, sir, up to you. If you want to take a break, we can take a break.
No, don't take break, otherwise you lose the tempo. Let me finish.
Okay, sir.
Ah.
Yes, sir, you can wind up as per your convenience.
But at least minimum it will take half an hour.
Yes, sir, we can go ahead.
And maybe even more. In production and operation, I will start with topic is field visit. I visited in 2013, Pioneer Field, and Reliance and Pioneer, they were joint venture. So I went there, and it was a whole day program, San Antonio, I reached there in the night, then I had a night halt, then we drove to Pioneer Eagle Ford Field, in the morning we started, then we reached their office, and then we had the tour to the wells and the pod, they call it pod, and then your gas compressor plant, and then we had lunch, and then we went to the rig, and then we also had a glimpse of the frac job, and when we returned in the evening. So it was a one-day program, but we covered most of the activity going on in the field. Actually, they have a field office, and field operations are managed from the field. This office, the first thing they do is they give you the safety brief. Even I started my presentation with a safety moment. It's a mandatory, and everybody must go for safety brief. Shale gas is own complexity, sophisticated drilling and completion techniques, high-tech, high-volume frac jobs. I'm just trying to use these terms time and again because I just want to let go in mind of everybody that sophisticated drilling and completion techniques, complex and high-tech, high-volume frac jobs. These are essential for shale gas and oil. And if these are there, then only you can produce from shale gas, otherwise no. Well-organized base office with recreation area, gym, etc. Good one. We went to the rig. No big civil job. It was only hardened drill site area, only hardened. And you can see here the rig. It is on the wheels. It comes on a trailer. No big civil job here. Just a small civil job. Here you can see. And then it just goes on this. The civil job structure. And it is erected here. So this take very, very less time. Rig is installed and jacked up with its own power system. You need not have to bring some crane or something, it is just done. And it reduces installation time, less than 2 days, very, very fast. Otherwise, so much of paraphernalia, trucks, rigs, and so many things come together. So everything is reduced. That is called optimization. Hydraulic catwalk and tubular casing handling system. Not too much of manual also, it's all hydraulic. Top drive for drilling. SOBM used for drilling. Bioremediation for the sludge disposal. Okay. And all efforts are there to optimize, minimize costs in operation, drilling, civil jobs, mobile rigs, etc. So this is one thing which I learned, and for shale gas production, development, this is a must. And this is just some statistics. That is rigs, they were using 10 rigs. They had drilled in that area around 300 wells, fracked almost same number of wells. Flowing is 268. Pod they have constructed, I'll come to pod, that is point of distribution we call it, or I'll just come back to that pod meaning. And this compressor station plant 11. I showed you this well diagram. This is the typical well diagram of the Pioneer, where the Targeted depth is around, say 15,000 feet or so. Then lateral is 5,500 feet. And they have done this cement is above Eagle Ford shale into intermediate casing for corrosion protection. Okay. And this is the another frac spade. As I explained you, the pumper and all that are there. A big system, you know. Zipper frac already explained you in the last few slides. Frac job, they do similar as I explained to you, multi-stage complex frac job, high volume, high pressure. The company has their one team of their own to do such complex job. And zipper method of frac treatment involves multi-stage frac job with isolation through wireline and application of CTU as per plan. You need not pull out the whole strings each time we complete one zone. Okay. At one location, two or three wells are fracked simultaneously. They plan in such a way that they do it simultaneously to reduce the time. And automation, monitoring, and control of all parameters during frac jobs done through control van. Control van is located on site, on the site. I had seen to that control van on the site location. This is the pod. That is your point of delivery. Point of delivery. They call it point of delivery. The wells are connected here. From point of delivery, it goes to centralized gathering point, compressor and gathering point, central gathering points, and then it goes to some central gathering point where it is, again then goes to the city gas and other places for the supply. And there are two types, that is the rich gas and the dry gas. Dry gas goes from here, and rich gas goes for some further stabilization. Why it is called pond? POD, point of distribution. That means each well owner is the landowner, is the owner of each well production. So at pod, point of distribution, they measure for each owner what is the gas from that particular owners or mine owners area, and then they allocate the production. So you can imagine that this guy has got a land here, and this well is producing from this land, so he gets the royalty of this, not the government. Similarly here also, and there is always some fight or some arguments, that why my production has gone down when this guy's production is remaining same. Then it's also their big job to explain to them, look, there the pressure has gone down, or some water index is there, or something, the way we try to explain here in our company to our bosses, So that has got to be explained to the real owners, that why their production has gone down, or what is the problem, okay? And here we are doing the processing. So you just see here, this is a well, 1, 2 wells are seen here. I am also standing here. So there is no such big civil jobs. Just some bund of this soil only here, okay? And these are some very skid mounted structures are there. Measuring gas separators are here because you always get some water also. So that has got to be separated. This skid, that gas which comes taken from here, that goes for the instrumentation for the separators installed there. Look here, this is your chemical tank. What they do, a truck with some 5, 6, 10 chemical tanks, they come filled in every week and they just replace the tank and take the empty tank back. And see here the solar panel that is used for running this pump, chemical pump. You just see how they are optimizing the whole system. Solar panel, then pump, then a tank. Not big job, very, very simple, very, very just fit for purpose. Okay. Minimum civil job, cellar pit at ground level, almost ground level. No permanent pig barrel, no permanent pig barrel for pigging. They bring portable pig barrel. Shut down valve with gas pressure volume bottles. These are the gas pressure volume bottles. Simple chemical injection portable skid. Very, very simple. They just take it away every week and fill in and put a new one. Battery, solar system. I mean, bare minimum facilities. Okay. So that way they reduce the cost. Now, point of delivery, that is pod. This is details of that. Each mineral owner has separate metering. They have got separate metering for oil, water, and gas. Vertical separators, orifice meters for gas, and Coriolis meters for liquids. Once meter transported to CGP for the gas processing plants. Two lines, oil and gas. Produced water is separated and transported by road tankers were filled in. Again, it comes in once in a week or once in 2 weeks, and it is transported through road tankers. Minimum facility, no electric power, only pneumatic system, solar and battery. Fit for purpose facility. We have got the manifold, we have got the separators also. Here you can see these are the separators. But no hard job, cement job. These are very, very simple job. Okay. Just harden land. मिट्टी को हार्ड कर दिया बस कुछ नहीं किया है वो simple. Just see, this is one GCP. You can see here, these are all not concrete or anything. Just bare minimum facility they have got. And all is skid mounted. Even the storage tanks are skid mounted. One good thing is there, no, where we have got the gathering, treatment and handling central gathering point, this is CGP. Facilities and operations are mostly non-populated area. Control room is basically field panel room, not a control room what we people have in our oil and gas field. They're very, very simple, bare minimum. All equipments modular. These are all modular generators kept on a small concrete skid, you can say, structure. Total area is only hardened minimum civil job, only fit for purpose facility. And that is the essence everywhere. That's the way they are operating everywhere. These are a count of manpower. 431 is their manpower and around 500 is contractors. So they are that include drilling and all, upstream, midstream. I had some thoughts. Was the one was the sharing knowledge and experience that is we should do within the companies, and some of the HSC operational excellence, we should share knowledge with pioneer engineers on plant basis, say once a year, and we had been doing that, especially in our subsurface team. They are a very integrated team, but operations team, yes, that needed to be done. And actually, I invited their production engineers to our KGD6 gas field, and we had gone there also. Sending our projects and operations team for field visit to see that optimization process in facilities and cost, how with bare minimum facilities, fit for purpose facilities, they are operating. And some Director General Mine Safety to visit these facilities to appraise them the regulatory needs and practices in design and operations, rather than sticking to the design and regulation conditions what we have got in our country. That is, in my view, for this type of facilities, it is very stringent, and we have to spend a lot of money on that. Hazards, yes, with your shell fracking and all, hydrofracking, there could be some channels can develop and go into aquifers and create some bubbles, and so this they might have faced in some areas, and industry is taking care of that. But interesting part is that these gas bubbles coming out from beneath, that has also been a reason for finding of some of the good fields. Like in India, Ankleshwar field, near Ankleshwar village, there was a water pond where there used to be some bubbles. And people were thinking, what is this bubble? Then somebody went there, they collected and found that some gas is there. Then we went for a seismic survey by the Russian team. Then we drilled and then we found oil. Now, Jwalamukhi Mandir in North India, the Devi temple, still Devi temple, a very small quantity of gas comes, and the pujari, he lights the lamp and then just goes, brings it near to the cave, and there is a gas flare is there. So usko पहले लोग बोलते हैं ज्योति का चमत्कार हो गया. So that is also there, but yes, it should not pollute. And there are instances where these fractures, they cause some pollution of the aquifer also, and we have to be very careful. Now, this case studies, I got some details from some of my friends, and I thought I'll share with you, because our engineers and scientists in our industry, they have always been doing some optimization, some initiatives, some innovations to improve the Fayetteville shale, that is middle area in your USA, where a lot of optimization job has been done in drilling, and how to improve the drilling efficiency, then real-time drilling information, then data quality monitoring and data management, and how we do it. Recently, I was discussing with one of my colleagues in Islamabad, and he is a data analytics head there. And he was telling that they are using drones also to monitor your drilling rig optimization, and using this data analytics in a big way. in monitoring of these wells. So I think this slide is very, very dear to me. And I just want to share. You forget drilling optimization, any optimization you do. So basically, data has got to become wisdom. Data, it becomes information, then it is a knowledge, then we understand, then is the wisdom. So this triangle of data to wisdom is the real gain of data analytics. What happens that you gather the data, then mostly people use it for information. Who, what, where, when, only reporting. Then some information becomes knowledge, how it happened, what was the issue. That is your event recognition. That is that we do where we have got 24/7 data and monitoring is done. Yes, these days because of the DCS and others, we are doing a lot of this knowledge, how it happened, what happened. But unfortunately, we are only mostly we are doing for some wrong event. Something has gone wrong, then we recognize, aha, there was a trip, there was a shutdown, then why it happened. Okay? And then we try to understand. But you know, wisdom is more than this. Doing the right thing, what is best. And for that, we need to plan, you know. And that is true for drilling optimization, even your optimization in your life, or optimization in your production operations, optimization in subsurface, wherever. So how to do this? And a good company or a good organization, they try to use the data in this sequence and try to get the maximum wisdom. That is very, very much required. And especially in the days of data analytics, where we got a lot of event recognition, you know, knowledge. So how to use it properly to optimize, to maximize the production. And so I thought this slide is very dear to me, and you all must, I think, recognize this. And you can find in your life also how we stop somewhere at the knowledge level. In most cases, होता है, हो गया, कोई बात नहीं. But we don't try to do why it happened and how can we improve upon. So these are some of the things, you know, understanding and then using it for future. You know, that's the wisdom. The industry is doing a lot. Again, from data flow from rig site to real-time technology center, then remote monitoring, you know, there's a two-way traffic, communication, drilling data transmission. And I can share with you that KGD6, my experience, we had some 65,000 data points from well or from subsurface to marketing. That those points were monitored each minute, you know, and then we are optimizing the whole system from wells to market. And that is possible only with data analytics. It's playing a big role. And as I told you that in many areas, they're using the drones, and that is optimizes the services, like say logging services. Schlumberger has got some tools somewhere 100 kilometers away. And by data analytics, I know that at this location X, I need it tomorrow. one method is that, okay, stop the job, bring it here immediately. He knows that it will take 6 hours to come. So he optimized the travel time and then he completes the job there and then brings the logging unit here. Like that, I mean, mud unit, logging unit. So this optimization of services is being done using data analytics and using the drones, that is being done, that is being implemented in our industry. I think just some figures, I mean, some plots, cost per foot, they decreased. Then average drilling hours has been decreased there. Drill days was improvement was there. Total depth, it is improved. And here, the average saving from that field was around $135,000 per well. Bits, 0 to 2 bits were saved in an area drilling. Average cost per meter decreased by 25%. Average drilling hours decreased, that also decreased, because of this logging while drilling tool that is called LWD and the improvement of such tools. We have also decreased the drill hours. ROP increases, rate of penetration, by 76%. So in this field, in this case history, it gave a economic benefit, then operational benefit, and it achieved consistency across different areas. And whatever they did, they could quantify it. That is drilling time, your ROP rate, everything they did quantify for the improving the efficiency. And then it also increased the safety and minimize additional resources or infrastructure, burden to be borne by the user. So it was planned in a better manner. Eagle Ford Shale drilling, that's also Eagle Ford Shale is an area. What they did was improvement in drilling times and cost due to several reasons, Then use of appropriate mud systems and improved bit designs that went for increased rate of penetration, ROP. Then they brought drilling equipment, advanced drilling equipment. And azimuthal gamma ray to stay in target without compromising. That is when you are going for a horizontal drilling or the drilling in a fractured zone, you will like that my drilling hole is inside the fractured area, so that my rate of penetration is good, and that is being done by logging while drilling, LWD, where we have got some logs. They measure this, your gas content and all, and then a good rate of drilling is achieved. Multi-well pads, as I explained to you, 4 wells at one pad. Like standardization of well design and practices. They have standardized this, and that has helped in decreasing the drilling time. Directional drilling with conventional motor assembly to save money, no RS required. So, I mean, every area, each area where we found that something can be done has been done. More adept to drill in sweet spots to increase productivity and reducing production cost by 40%, More favorable rates from suppliers, have a good interaction with suppliers and then contract conditions have been improved. Improvement in completions, use of pilot hole, advanced log analysis, increase height of proppant and connected surface area, adjusting landing zones, where we should land the vertical portion, so that we land in good area and then we can go for good horizontal drilling. Drilling and completion time has improved up to say 52%, Normally now only 2-string casing design. Earlier it used to 3-string, 4-string. That has been done. And that has improved the drilling time. So the improvement is seen in graphs. Operating costs, they have improved by, say, contract negotiations, The reduction of workforce also they have done. Pad drilling, renegotiated better contracts. So these are some of the areas in operations companies have done. Okay. Now, what is takeaway from my talk today? I'll take five minutes, I think. Shale gas business is a complex one. I think by going through this, some 70, 80 slides, you must be now convinced that this is a complex one. And USA and China are leading. And some other countries are also there, like Venezuela and all. They are leading in shale gas drilling. Could somebody find out what is the number of shale gas wells in the USA? Anybody from net or Google? My data was 1.7 million. 17 lakhs wells are there in USA, which was something like in 2007, it was around 25,000 to 30,000 wells. Huge expansion. And India is in nascent stage. Subsurface complexity is to be addressed properly to really get to the sweet zone. We need to have large number of wells with low production and less life cycle. That is one requirement. Then high-tech systems in drilling for improving efficiency. That means cost efficient. It should be fast. Advances in hydrofracturing technology is the key for optimum shale cost optimization, efficiencies, and many cases we must standardize the technology, and fit for purpose is essential to shale economics for operation and for any activity. I mean, we can't be very generous in expenditure. Technology, economics, and cost optimization is the driver. And environmental impact is to be addressed fruitfully. And that is also very much required. So these are my, I think it is my takeaway. And thanks for patient hearing, listening. References is basically I have referred the DGH report, some slides from SP, AZP conference papers, took something from Google, some slides from YouTube, mostly open source, and RIL visit report, then company presentations, which I got from my friends. So thank you. Yes. Any
Thank you,
question?
sir. Now I request S. Mahima for question answer session.
Thank you, Shubham. So the first question is from Swaraj. What are the most important risks arising from the exploitation of shale gas?
What are the most?
Important risks arising from the exploitation of shale gas.
Okay. As such, there is no risk. Only some environmental risk, which I just explained to you, that sometimes there are some risk of mixing this gas into the aquifer. That is in some areas. Otherwise, and during drilling and flow back, if some effluent is there, so that has got to be properly treated and disposed of. These are the only things. But that is for any of the oil and gas operation anywhere in the world. Even in our your in situ combustion in India, in Balol and Ranwa field, where the reservoir depth is low, say around 800 meter to 1000 meter, we found that some of the water wells for irrigation, they had started producing gas, a mix of gas. So the field was closed for some time. We found out the reason for it. We rectified it, and then it is working. I mean, so again we started the production. So this is the only risk. Otherwise, production is low rate gas wells are there, simple gas, not too much of flaring. So it's not a very risky thing. One risk people are talking of कि earthquake का chances बढ़ जाता है, in California and other areas. But then a study was done, and then I think it has improved that no, this is not the reason for increasing in the earthquake. As such, minimal. Next.
Thank you, sir. Next question. ONGC found new 51 shale gas deposits. Can you guide us about this?
ONGC found
51 shale gas deposits. Can you guide us about this?
as I told that ONGC has got some shale gas in some of the areas, and in the slide also I just showed you that some exploratory wells have been drilled. But as I told you that as far as they have not hydrofractured those wells. There is only one well example is there which has been hydrofractured. So that is a lot of job has got to be done, But even till now, this is on a low priority. I mean, we have not done much. The reason could be that it needs lot of effort, investment, and the existing fields. Company could be very busy, and as a matter of fact, whatever I am telling is from the DGH report, whatever they have done. But latest, I have no idea, to be very frank. But nothing much has been done.
Thank you, sir. Next question from Karminder Kaur. How many years India might take to economically produce shale gas?
Economically produce shale gas.
Yes, sir.
See, shale gas can be produced economically only where infrastructure is available. First, I mean, that will be the cheaper and better managed condition. So in my view, some areas in the Cambay field where the oil and gas fields are already existing, and beneath that, if the some shale gas formations are there, and if you drill it and fracture it, then it can be done faster. So, as you are already seeing that we started this campaign in 2013 and we are 2021 now, and it needs I mean, a very concerted effort from the government and from DGH and ONGC also, how to develop it. And one more thing, all of you must be aware that getting the land for drilling, laying the pipeline, uh, doing this water resources, it's very tough job in our country. It's not simple job. And wherever I have to acquire a lot of land, there is lot of opposition from the existing people. Even if you pay them the money, but then there is some agitation. And what happens, the fact of life is that some scrupulous element they just come into, and they want to earn money. So the Kishan or the landowner, they are not the major culprit. They get what they are supposed to get, but the middleman, uh, it could be anybody. I just don't want to put some names or something like that. Could be some politician, could be some gangster. They just enter into and then they try to squeeze money. And then that is a unaccounted money. So it's very tough, in our industry to do such jobs in a. Ideas are good, but but very tough. If you ask me uh, when, then I think economically some wells certainly can be put in coming 3, 4, or 5 years. That is my guess, huh? I can be wrong.
Thank you, sir. Next question from Sumedh. Hello, sir. Can hydraulic fracking cause blowout?
No. It doesn't cause blowout. It doesn't.
Thank
We
you, sir.
don't have any such example that it can cause blowout.
Okay, sir. Moving on to the next question from Amit. Good evening, sir. Regarding the software used through the process, any advice for knowing which ones we should consider for developing ourselves as freshers?
Say it again.
Regarding the software used through the process, any advice for knowing which ones we should consider for developing ourselves as freshers?
Actually, there are company softwares are there. Like Slumberger has got some softwares where this hydrofracturing is also a part of that. Okay. So you can contact companies like Slumberger or Halliburton, and from SP maybe for SP Mumbai I can try some of those softwares were for educational purposes, how it can be shared with your institute. And maybe I will talk to some of my colleagues and convey that to Professor Sagar.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Next question from Rahul Pawar. Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Is it harder to produce shale gas than natural gas? And does the cost of production changes or is it the same for both?
See, a gas is a gas, whether shale gas or your other gas, okay, natural gas. This is also natural gas. Why shale gas has become popular in USA and other countries is because they had the infrastructure, they needed the gas, and then they had the natural resources were there, they did it. What happened? Shale gas along with some shale oil that become very profitable. You remember, I mean, say the oil price went up to even $100 or even more than that for some time. And then the private companies are very enterprising in the US and all. So they, if the opportunity is there, they try to grab it. When the oil prices were high, then this gas also was costly. So they thought that why not we put more wells on gas. And shale was the area where a lot of subsurface shale gas, shale formations were available and exploration was done. And they found that it is economical, so they did anything economical, whether shale gas or other gas, people will go and have it. So this is the reason. However, when the prices were going down, say last year or so, the shale gas was in virtually red. They were not getting even money invested. So this is the economics, nothing else. Much is recovery is not possible. Yes.
Thank you, sir. We have come to the question and answer session. End of the question and answer session.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mahima. Now I request Abhishek Gade for vote of thanks.
Thank you, Shubham. First and foremost, on the behalf of Nauroz Jivadia College SP Student Chapter, I take the opportunity to pull all my gratitude in words. I would like to thank our speaker, Mr. Prem Kumar Verma, who has taken out valuable time from his busy schedule to share a vast knowledge. Sir, your talks were very informative that kindle a renewed enthusiasm in us. On behalf of entire SP group, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude for your presence and inspiring words. I would like to thank our principal, Dr. P.K. Bhadane, without whose support, the lecture would not have been possible. Thank you, sir. I also thank our HOD, Dr. Sanjida Khan, for your cooperation. Finally, I would like to thank the students who have been a very encouraging and attentive audience. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It was a detailed presentation focusing all the important points. And you made it really simple for all to understand. It is a complex subject, but you made it very easy.
Yeah,
And advices that you have given, we will try to implement them.
yeah, that's correct. And at least we should know where we are in our context, Indian context. That is also,
Yes, sir.
yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.